Hey everybody, thought today on the second episode of Reflux, I thought we would talk about some of the things I promised you I would maybe elucidate on the first video. So I know there's a big controversy out there right now about when to use proton pump inhibitors, how long to use them, what are the long-term side effects, and all of that kind of stuff. And I know that I get questions about this frequently, and it's a difficult subject because it puts two really important things head to head. One, your intense need for medications for reflux, which clearly is why you're in the office. But secondly, once we establish that the medications work, how safe are they and how long can you take them? So let me dig into that right quick. In the last video, we talked about acid and proton production in the stomach, hydrogen ions in the stomach. Well, God created our stomachs to work in a certain way, and it's an incredible engineering feat to achieve the ability to digest carbohydrate, fat, and protein in a way that is as efficient as our GI tracts are able to do, and yet have as little difficulty with it over a 75 or 80 year period as we do. So one of the things that we have a lot of difficulty with is a pool of fluid in the region below the esophagus that is responsible for breaking down and digesting, both chemically and in a grinding fashion, that food stuff that we gather from the earth that provides us with the abilities to maintain and to rebuild our bodies. One of the major centers of chemical interaction is in the stomach with acid production. Now, the GI tract is extremely complicated in that when acid is made by a certain type of cell in the stomach called the parietal cell, those hydrogen ions or protons that are found in the stomach lumen come at a price. There is an amount of energy that's necessary for the cells in the stomach to produce this hydrogen ion cascade, and also an energy requirement to maintain that hydrogen ion content in the stomach against a gradient. Because remember, we talked in the first video about the fact that the body is very rigid about maintaining its pH for health purposes, so that we as a battery can operate. Our heart can beat, our eyes can close and open, and our muscles can contract. In order for that to take place, the stomach, which is a very acidic environment, requires a gradient of protons inside the stomach lumen compared to the bloodstream. So it's really important that that process take place. When it does, it has a tendency to keep an acid environment, which when you lay down and lose gravitational support, wants to find itself back up in the esophagus, which does not like acid environment. So back in the actually in the 80s, there was a group of medications that were found to be effective in inhibiting proton secretion into the stomach. They're naturally called proton pump inhibitors. Those medications are the mainstay for acid maintenance today. Peptic ulcer disease, which was an extremely common problem back in the 60s and 70s, responsible for lots of hospitalizations, has virtually been eradicated with the onset of these proton pump inhibitors, along with antibiotics for a bacteria that's occasionally found in the stomach, as well as avoidance of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents. But to get to the point, with proton pump inhibitors, it's really important to understand that as you're inhibiting acid in the stomach, therefore making reflux more of a tolerable condition, the deacidification of the stomach disallows permission for other crucial functions in the GI tract to take place. Those things are iron absorption, divalent cation absorption like calcium, magnesium, manganese, and then of course the natural breakdown of bacteria and viruses that acid is so important in becomes a critical problem as well. So what we've decided to do with proton pump inhibitors is use them as carefully as we can to control the symptoms that people have, but try to control them for a period of time, say 3 to 6 months, and then try to defervesce to a lesser potent acid medication, say the old H2 antagonists or your Tagamet, what we used to have was Zantac, Pepsid, Axid, those kind of medicines. And so this really has to be an ongoing and significant consideration. Yes, we understand there are certain patients who have to be on the proton pump inhibitors for long periods of time, some even for life. But we would like to get most people off of those medications as quickly as we can because we recognize that over a long period of time, the possibility for side effects, even the things that we've brought up like dementia and kidney problems, long-term effects can be a real problem. So I would highly advise, if you're on a proton pump inhibitor and you feel dependent on it, that you talk with your internist or your gastroenterologist about finding a way to wean yourself off of it, especially if you already have a problem with bone demineralization or renal insufficiency or things that would predispose you to long-term proton pump inhibitor usage, adding or piling on to create more difficulty down the line. And we all know that when we're young, we can handle medications much easier than when we're older, and those medications get harder to deal with. So, in summary, I think it's important to understand that using proton pump inhibitors are almost a necessary evil, if you will, but that you should always use them with the idea that you're going to get off of them as soon as possible. Let me emphasize, in closing up this end of the part of the discussion, I cannot bring this up enough. If you have reflux and you are overweight, if you will lose the weight, your dependency on proton pump inhibitors, and for that matter, the older H2 antagonists, will become much less. Therefore, weight loss is at the top of the list for anybody anticipating utilization long-term of acid inhibitors. If you can get that weight off, and sometimes it may be as little as 5 or 10 pounds, but if you can do it, you'll find that your use of these medications will be significantly less. The second arm is to use the H2 antagonists or PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, for a shorter period of time as is possible. Yes, you can still use the over-the-counter medications, your Mylantas and Maloxes and Jayacils and Tums and Rolaids, etc. But you got to know that those are short-term fixes. They'll only last for a short period of time. And therefore, you really can't rely on them to help you very much, even at night before you go to bed, because they're only going to give you about a half hour, 45 minutes or so of relief. And the bounce back effect will be there if you don't have a longer term acid inhibitor in the bloodstream. So weight loss, your acid inhibitors, and then your diet. It's really important that you understand that dietary measures have a major effect on how your stomach functions. I'm gonna save that for another video. We'll talk about how dietary products, that is carbohydrates, fat, proteins, etc., effect both promote the digestive system as well as inhibit the digestive system. So in the next video, we'll talk about food content, what you can expect with certain types of diets, keto diets, carbohydrate restricting diets, protein load diets, paleo diet, your diets in general that take advantage of, for the most part, carbohydrate restriction. There is a price to pay. We have to discuss those things, but it doesn't mean you can't safely do it. Follow a dietary regime if you'll keep an eye on the things that are important to maintaining a good, healthy relationship otherwise. Diabetes has become a big problem out there, and one of the big things that looms over a lot of us is the need to restrict access to to dietary sugar to lower your blood sugar. So next video, we'll talk about that. We're trying to go as broad a stroke as we can. We're going to reach each one of these issues, and we're going to go right across the frontier of the GI tract. And we'll talk about all the things that are affecting each parts of the GI tract as we go. We'd love for you to participate. We'd like your feedback. We'd like for you to like us, to subscribe to us, and ring the bell to let us know that you're paying attention, that you like what we're doing. And any suggestions you might have, we would love to entertain. Thanks for your attention. I look forward to doing this for some time to come, and I'll see you on the next episode.